Welcome to this afternoon's first breakout session, and I'm Catherine Clancy. I'm part of the Anaphori team, and we're here today to explore navigating services together. We've got three areas that are going to be talking through their approaches this afternoon. We've got Vicky from Blackpool, Sharon and Catherine from Westminster, and Claire, Ella and Katrina from Salford, and it'll be really interesting for them to share their experiences so far. And at the end of our presentations, we'll all have the opportunity to ask questions and to share our own experiences and learning around how we support families to find their way through our services and get the care and support that they need. So to start off, our first presentation will be from Vicky in Blackpool. Jen, if you can share the slides for Vicky. And Vicky, I'd invite you to start your presentation.
Thank you. We'll just wait for the slides to go on, but I can start my introduction. My name is Vicky, and hello to people that are watching this morning. I am a development manager at the Centre for Early Child Development, which is a Better Start site. Apologies if you were able to make the plenary, but a little bit about Better Start for context before we look at the Community Connector role. Slide 2, please. We are one of 5 National Lottery community funded sites in England with an aim of improving outcomes for families from conception to under 4s. So this will explain why some of our examples fit neatly into the premise of family hubs, but are focused on parents with younger children. The Blackpool Better Start programme follows a strategic partnership approach with key stakeholders from health, local authority, police, and of course our community to impact on change in the town. It's underpinned by a system change approach, and our work aims to improve outcomes on speech and language, diet and nutrition, social emotional development outcomes to achieve a generational shift. Next slide, please. Many local authorities applied for Better Start funding as the investment supports change over a 10-year period. And along with Blackpool's commitment to partnership, working our data leading to poor outcomes for our residents did lead to Blackpool being prioritised. And I'll just give you a few kind of seconds to have a look at that comparison within other towns and cities in the Northwest, and then also the English averages as well. And the next slide, please, and the same on the next slide. Our Blackpool Better Start approach is multifaceted, including workforce development, targeted support, and specialist interventions. Underpinning all of the programme and critical to its success are multiple community-led approaches, including the role of our community connectors. In addition, and what is perhaps most unique about these roles, is that they have been designed by the community themselves. Community members wanted a trusted peer who could advocate and share messages to other community members on early childhood development topics, and through their own lived experience, could really understand the challenges and opportunities that families in Blackpool can experience. Through a programme of community outreach and family hub-based activity, their role is to develop connections with local families, many of whom are suggested to be hard to reach by mainstream services. Our Community Connector role was created by the community back in 2016 and has since been achieved an Innovation Award by Harvard University. We work in total partnership with the local authority in the family hubs to offer connections to families and their communities. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, the previous one. The Community Connectors are a team of 7 full-time equivalent roles, mostly working part-time, and they've been assigned champion roles to link with services, becoming more expert in their area of interest. So we have health connectors that support on topics such as infant feeding, oral health, or money saving, giving out Healthy Start vitamins and signing parents up to the scheme, for example. Our community connectors link to services such as volunteering, co-production and accessing community assets, also ensuring that parents are receiving their child's nursery entitlement, supporting school readiness. We also have roles that support dad's engagement and male carers. However, it's always better to hear about these roles firsthand. So here's a clip from our national conference last year where connectors Emma and Katie talk about their role and what it's like to be a day in the life of a community connector.
Katie, Emma, hello, thanks for joining us today. As our community-facing team, it'd be really good to hear how you're supporting families to access community services, particularly the family hubs that we've spoken to Sam about earlier. And it'd be also really good to hear a little bit more about messaging, particularly in relation to that early childhood development.
Yeah, so going back to the Best Start for Life report, one of the comments that came out consistently from parents is that it can be really hard to know what's available in your local area. It can be hard to know where to get help, where to go to get help, and also hard to find advice that you can trust online. And parents and carers don't have information about their babies readily accessible. So that's where we come in as community connectors. So we talk to professionals, then we try to link the families with services, and then we will give or try to signpost parents to accurate and up-to-date advice, because can be really confusing as a new parent. You know, people try to give you advice on everything from how your baby should be sleeping, how you should be feeding your baby. So we talk to the community about these messages, and also about messages that their health visitor or midwife or nursery workers even might be giving them, and explain why they're being given these messages, because sometimes obviously this advice they're given, it's not safe and it's not backed up by research. So we try to give them,
I think that's a really important point. You know, we're either all parents ourselves here, or we work really closely with people that have got children, and you can be in the supermarket, can't you, with a small baby, and someone wants to give you advice on kind of feeding or sleep. And you're right, sometimes that's based on their experience, which is really valuable, but evidence changes and research changes quite quickly, doesn't it? And we want to make sure that parents are getting the best advice so that they can make an informed choice with everything that they've got. I'm wondering if you can give us an example of a project that is supported by this kind of style of messaging.
So we work with the community to adapt messages around infant feeding and sleep, as this is where parents told us they get a lot of advice from others, and often this advice can be conflicting. As connectors in the Learning to Feed volunteer service, we go to our baby steps antenatal classes, birth registrations and community sessions to share these messages with new mums, dads, grandparents, whoever really. And if parents tell us they need a more intensive support around sleep or feeding, we can then direct them and signpost them to services within our family hub, such as Henry, midwifery and health visiting as well.
That's great, and I think for some people at home, we're going to see some of those messages on the screen now. So that's just one aspect of the work that you're doing that's supporting communities to understand some public health messages that are maybe delivered in a safer way by people that are out in the communities. I'm wondering if you could tell me a bit more about kind of other day-to-day work that the community and health connectors get involved in.
Yeah, so on a day-to-day basis, we'll go out into the community and we will talk to families about other services, like Emma said, the Henry Infant Feeding Service, the Park Rangers, the Sling Library. We'll talk to people about the Healthy Start voucher scheme, how they can sign up for it, and also give them vitamins if they want them. We signpost families to speech and language services, 2-year grant funding for nurseries, but we also work with the community around the messages on brain development and also the trauma-informed approaches.
Wow, so quite a lot then in a working week.
Yeah, and I think also it's really important because we've learned from how we used to offer services. So yes, the family hub is a place where people can go, and the professionals work from. But we found that actually accessing other community venues like GP surgeries, parks, churches, mosques, libraries, and going to those venues with our wider services and messages, that's really key to supporting all babies, children and their families.
And I think that's consistent, isn't it, from Sam talking about the family hubs and Jed earlier around making sure the services are within those communities, and messaging being a really important part of that. And I'm just wondering, within those kind of first 1,001 days, where messages sit within outcomes?
I guess it gives the community and practitioners a shared language and a shared understanding of early childhood development and how we all have a responsibility to support babies and children as they grow.
Thanks. We probably couldn't finish a session without talking about the last 20 months, and actually as a community team, the kind of changes that you've maybe had to make in terms of delivering. I'm wondering, for areas that are maybe looking at family hubs or maybe looking at community outreach, if you've any tips or ideas to what you've found has worked well when restrictions are in place in terms of accessing buildings and things like that.
So obviously over the last 20 months, for a period of time, most of these community buildings were closed. So we had to think of different ways by engaging families on doorsteps, meeting them at the park. We also were working on our social media outlets, doing Facebook Lives, videos as well. And in the last 20 months as a team of part-time health and community connectors, we've managed to have over 2,500 face-to-face contacts with parents with children under the age of 4.
Which is massive, isn't it? And I think, you know, it's about taking some of those mechanisms that have worked really well over the last 20 months, and it'll be those things that we'll keep doing, won't we, locally?
Yeah, the pandemic has definitely helped us work differently and more mobile, more than we ever have done before, and we'll definitely continue to be doing that in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who's joined us today. If you would like to hear a little bit more about the family hubs in Blackpool or the community connector service, please have a look at our website or social media pages and enjoy the rest of today's presentations.
So when co-producing the role with the community, they wanted people who already lived and spent time in the town to be encouraged and supported to apply. And as our employer was the NSPCC, we needed to create a new role profile and job description, prioritising that lived experience over more traditional qualifications and skills. And because of this, we had to ensure that the team have access to further training and qualifications in areas such as IT. And although our funding means our focus is mainly on families with young children, our model can quite easily be replicated to support community members of all ages, and our local authority case holding colleagues mirror our approach, so all babies, children and young people and their communities receive a consistent service. We know the question that's on everyone's lips is, how do you know that this approach or service is making an impact? And for those of you that have had the opportunity to hear from the Children's Commissioner last week on her findings from the family review, you'll know that prioritising strengths and opportunities from the families themselves is key to tackling community disparities, and this comes from the voices of the children. The Community Connector service is committed to building on family strengths and efficacy through its methodology. And as outlined in the family review, families prefer peer-to-peer advice and guidance to support their family's needs. When Blackpool was visited by Dame Rachel D'Souza, we know that this element of the role is something that she did really value. Next slide, please. However, although we are all eagerly awaiting our published outcomes from the programme ending 2025, we know from our community consultations that are held bi-yearly and stakeholder conversations that the community connectors are well established within Blackpool as a trusted source of information and signposting for parents and professionals alike. If you would like to know more on the service, please stay for the question and answers at the end of the session, or contact us via Twitter or our website.
Thank you so much, Vicky, for sharing your experiences in Blackpool. I'm sure we all take real heart from the very ground up approach and the real pragmatic and caring approach of the ladies who spoke in your video. So really, really important to learn from that. So our next speakers are from Westminster, and it's Sharon and Catherine.
Thank you. So I'm going to start off. My name's Catherine Drake-Wilkes, and I'm a Family Hub Manager in Westminster. And we piloted Family Hubs from 2018. And one of the first things that we thought about testing out was the role of a family navigator. So the idea of helping families to navigate services. I'm not sure the slides are coming up, but they're just bullet points anyway. So we were conscious that we were moving from children's centres, so under 5s, to a 0 to 19 or 0 to 25 potentially service. And we had a lot of staff who were very confident in working with parents of babies and toddlers, and who were a bit daunted by the idea of what do we do with teenagers when they come. So we really wanted to recruit some staff who had a wide range of experience across the whole age range and felt very comfortable and confident to talk to young people and parents from a wide variety of backgrounds. So we didn't have a set qualification or route into this role, but we really valued that experience. We ended up recruiting quite several. It's a small team still, only 5 of them, but several have experience in pastoral roles within either primary or secondary schools, have worked doing parenting support or parent assessments. But the key to it really is the ability to build relationships, trusting relationships with children, young people and parents. So they are part of the early help service in children's services in Westminster, but they are separate from the roles of the targeted early help team, who have a particular threshold and criteria for their work. We wanted this to be much more fluid and flexible, and parents able to access it with very sort of what might seem very small issues, but be able to build that relationship with the family hub and know it as somewhere that they can come to. They will get a friendly, welcoming response and be treated with respect as the experts on their children, as the most important people in their children's learning and development. So the navigators also are intended to be, as well as a first point of contact, able to quickly kind of assess what the needs are in a family, and if need be, to escalate them to the right service. But it might be that they need to draw together a team around the family, make sure that the right professionals are linked up, that everybody's sharing one plan, and that everybody's not working in their different silos. So they're a key person in spreading that approach, which we want to have across our early help system. We could never have enough family navigators to have a navigator working as the main family support for every family in Westminster. So a big part of what we're trying to do across the system is to increase that confidence amongst other professionals, so that the person who's best placed to be the main support for that family is able to do so, but perhaps with some support or consultation from a family navigator. It also means there is a person who may be reaching out or responding to other services who are contacting us, such as schools, such as GP practices, and that's an ongoing process. We've been talking recently about having dentists and pharmacists coming in and more linked into the family hubs. So it's been a very popular and service, and parents have given us a lot of feedback about how they value it. And that's reflected in the fact that most families we work with come to us themselves. They walk through the door, they phone up, they often will bring a friend and say, can you help them as well? And that's, of course, that's a really good starting point to do some work at that sort of early intervention stage. So although we do start working with some families as well who may have been referred into children's services but don't meet a threshold for social work, or they may be referred in directly by a health visitor or school nurse or GP, the biggest number are families who identify themselves that some support would be helpful and want to find out about it. As we're in the centre of London, you probably won't be surprised to know that our biggest reason for consulting with us initially is around housing. What has really struck us is the amount of support we're asked for around children's SEND and also children's emotional well-being. And of course, the pandemic's had an impact on that for all of our services. As also, we work with a lot of families where adult mental health is an issue, but really it is as long as a piece of string. There are so many different family situations and family strengths and families unique situations. So it's really meant to be a responsive role, and the key to the training that we offer is around a relational approach. So all staff have access to training in systemic practice, and we really think about trauma-informed approaches. A lot of families are coming to us having had a history of migration or different kinds of trauma, and really thinking about the impact of that on family life. So more important than me talking is to hear from Sharon, who you might have heard in the video right at the beginning of the day, and she can tell you what it's like to be a family navigator and what her sort of day-to-day practice is.
Hello everybody, so I'm Sharon Blake. I haven't actually seen the video yet, so if I repeat anything, I'm really sorry. So my role at Westminster is I'm a family navigator, and I'm based in the North East. So for those who aren't that familiar, North East is like Paddington, Edgware Road, that kind of area. So here I've just got a few things. I thought I don't want to rattle on too much if you've had to watch me this morning for 15 minutes. So I just thought I'd put some bits here and just go really about my day and what I kind of do. So I always say, when people say, what do you do? I say it's early help. And they say, well, what does that mean? I'm working for early help for 5 years before I'd done this role. I noticed that a lot of parents would need support. They'd come through the front door, or they'd turn up at the offices and say, I need a bit of help. And they never quite, as Catherine said, they never hit the threshold. So an example of that lady was in the drop-in where I go. You saw from the video, that's just earlier, that's where I work, in the drop-in, and she was behind on her rent arrears. And I think it was like 1 month, but that's like about £1,000. And she was a bit worried about it, but she was like, I feel too scared to phone the housing because of what they're going to say. So I said, well, sit down, let's call them together. Let's do this, just to give her a bit of confidence. Straight away, a payment plan was set up that she could afford. Now, what we've noticed here, that if you leave, people can leave it. Before you know it, as you know, they're like £6,000 in arrears. They're at risk of losing their home, becoming homeless. The children are going to have to move schools. They're going to have to go in bed sits. So this is really good. We try and sort these issues out before it gets to that kind of situation. I put here about taking on the lead professional role. Same as really what I was saying, a lot of people won't have a social worker, they won't have an early help practitioner, but they might need somebody to help write that benefits letter, have somebody who's supporting them on that. And I can actually do that. Doesn't mean I have to take on a case. It might be, Sharon, I just need your help, blah, blah, blah. I can assess that situation and I can support. with the title of working for Westminster Children's Services. What's also really important that we found here is supporting professionals in taking the lead in TAF meetings. When I was an early help practitioner, we noticed a lot of professionals, whether it be health, school, they didn't want us to close the case because they like the way that we organise the TAFs, and we done the the plan and everything. So a lot of my job is actually I say training, but it's giving the practitioners the confidence to actually take on that role and support, whether, like I said, whether it be teaching, whether it be health, so that they can actually, if they need to, take on that role and look at and put in a plan for the family, because not, like we said, not everything hits the threshold. I put here local networking with local services and charities. So local services and charities, there's so many that I could go on for ages, but we all know about food banks. So before, you would need an early help practitioner, or you'd need a social worker to do a referral for food banks. Some need that. We can do that at the drop-in as professionals here. We also have a gangs unit here, and as we were saying, we're 0 to 19. So at Westminster Children's Services, they have the gangs unit. I've had a mum come in before, and everything's fine with her kids. They go to school, everything's going well, but and the baby's all right. But she says, oh, Sharon, my 15-year-old is coming home with new trainers and he's got no money. He's out till 9 o'clock at night. What's this all about? I can sit down and have conversations about her older children because she doesn't really know. And explain these things. I can talk to the gangs unit. I say to them, what do you think? They can say, do you want me to have a chat with mum? So, that's an example for you. As Peter said in the video, we have benefit support here. We have the disability team here, housing. And I know it's really hard. People can be on the phone for like an hour trying to get through to someone from shelter or from housing, and having people here, it's really good because they kind of come to the parent. And also we found that a lot of people, they don't really want to, sitting on the phone for an hour. Sometimes I feel a bit degraded that they've got to phone someone and be left on hold and explain themselves from department to department to department. They just give up and then they get themselves in a bit of a mess. So having everything here at the centre is just amazing. We also have really good interpreters here. We have a lot of staff, lots of different languages. We can book interpreters as well if we need to. Or we can do it on the phone. What have I put? Sorry. So just on the local services, I just want to say about religious services as well. It was really important for me to make contact with the Imam at Regent Street Mosque, and also other religions, so that we had that relationship, knew what we were doing, so that it wasn't a case of, you have someone from a children's worker, and there's a stigma, but they understood what we were doing. And that way we could get into communities that maybe we might not be able to get into, and support not only mothers, teenagers, children, but also support fathers, which is really important as well. Specialised coordinating projects. I don't know how many of you were at the session that we had earlier that I was at. So I work with, I think I've got about 120 asylum seeking families that live in hotels, 3 hotels in Paddington. So we do a lot of specialising coordinating projects, but that one in particular is we try and get the families into the hub. We've got the drop-in here, we've got the nursery, we have people that can support with their language, we have coffee mornings, and just these families are in a hotel. There might be 5 people in a bedroom, they're on £8 a week. Just being able to get them outside to come somewhere that doesn't cost any money. We've had clothes, I kind of do clothes here, put out, we need school uniform, everyone drops it off, they can come here, and word spreads, call Sharon, blah blah blah. So it's really good. Having links with local authority departments as well. So it's really good because I work for Early Help Westminster, but I'm based at the hub. I have contacts with like admissions with the disability team, like I said earlier, with the gangs unit and Westminster Employment Services. So if people come to me, Sharon, I'm thinking of getting back to work, I've got that connection with the employment service. We can do that straight away without them having to look, who do I go to, what do I do? Like I gave you the example of, you know, the young lad coming home with the trainers and everything, straight away can do that. Parents that are worried, it's, you know, babies, I'm not too sure about disability, or they have been told their child's disabled, being able to do them referrals for them without them having to go through a long process of going through the front door, getting a worker, just come and see me. I think that what's good about my job, a lot of it is signposting, but you stay involved. We're in the Church Street area, and you know, I remember my dad saying to me, you find a job you like, you'll never work a day in your life. And I kind of feel that, because I feel like I come into work, even when I get off the bus, I have people going, Sharon, Sharon. I'm like, hello, hello. And it's just really nice to, that people, you know, they want the support. You get people walking in off the street, like Catherine said, self-referrals, because word's getting out there that we're here to support. There's no judgment, there's nothing like that. We literally just want to help everyone. You know, I always say to using my graces when I meet families, you know, I tell them I was a teenage single mum. I've been there. You know, it's hard. We're parents, and it doesn't matter even if you've got all the money in the world. You know, it's tough. And sometimes just sitting there and having a cup of coffee and listening and saying it's going to be all right, sometimes that's all they need. And that is the place, the family hub here. So I've just rambled on for 10 minutes. I'm gonna breathe. But yeah, if you've got any questions for me, please do put it in the chat and I'll answer them afterwards.
Thank you so much. You know, we really feel your kind of warmth and your compassion and your passion for families. So thank you both very much, Sharon, particularly. And it's about that kind of soft, child-centered, family-centered entry into support, really. And it sounds like you really cracked it. So really inspiring, thank you. So our next speakers are from Salford, and we've got Claire, Ella and Katrina.
Hello, Catherine, and hello, everybody else. Thank you for that introduction. So my name is Claire East, and I am fairly new Family Hubs Coordinator at Salford Early Help, and I'm here today with Ella and Katrina, who work alongside me from Salford CVS, and we are going to talk a little bit about how we're trying to improve the access for families through the VCSE Community Partnership within Salford. I'll talk a little bit about our roles, but Ella and Katrina will expand on that more, on the great work that they've been doing across Salford. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Salford Family Partnership is our umbrella term for our early help offer for children, young people and families. We've got 4 family hubs in the city offering integrated services and support for families at a neighbourhood place-based level. The family hubs enable integrated delivery and co-location of services, such as through the local authority early help team, 0 to 19 service, youth service, school coordinators, early years advisors, area SENCOs, and we also have some sites offering an early years provision. Although we have established these family hubs, we're working really hard to build and develop the relationships across the local community in partnership with Ella and Katrina and Salford CVS, so that we are recognising that there is more work to do, and we also are ready for our theory of change. We're reaching out to services, professionals, families to capture their vision and to shape the future of the partnership so that we can all move forward together collectively. Ultimately, we're all reaching for the same goal, though, to support families, to work holistically with them, to build resilience, to give them a greater sense of well-being, to improve outcomes, and also to take ownership of their local family hubs, that co-partnership, co-delivery. Next slide, please. So here you'll see that we've got a really wide range of services already on offer through our family hubs. We're really proud of everything that we've been able to set up across Salford, especially given during the pandemic it was difficult. We did lose a number of the groups and the deliveries that we had on offer, but we are in the process of building those back up now. We've got strong links into the midwife service, the healthy child clinics. We've got baby socials in all of our centres again. So we've got a great offer of antenatal and postnatal support, which I won't list everything there because we'll be here all day if I do. But we're also really proud of the fact that we're UNICEF Gold accredited in Salford, the first local authority to achieve that. We have all our early help teams within our family hubs as well. So there's always a port of call for someone if they need to just get that information and advice. And especially as we have family hubs in our gateway centres as well across Salford, which is also a local community hub for people to access a range of services, not just early help or family services. During the pandemic, we also expanded on our online offer. So we have some online services for reducing parental conflict. We've got 3 programmes that families and parents can access 24 hours a day if they're having issues in their relationships. We've also got 24-hour access to our Solihull online parenting courses that families can tap into if they recognise that they might need some support. They might have been referred for early help, but we know that sometimes there is a wait before you actually have that practitioner involvement. So we know that there is instant access to some of that universal offer if they need it. We've really expanded also on our digital and social presence. We have our Facebook and Instagram pages. We're still working on those, but we've seen that grow over the last few months, and we link in really closely with our youth offer so that we're all looking joined up, and we've got regular activity daily going on, linking into local community groups as well, so people know what else is out there in Salford. And we're building those relationships again through our Salford Family Partnership. We've also got an offer through our gateway centres with the Better Off Now service for money, benefits and debt advice. So families that might not think, they might not come to the Family Hub because there's sometimes that worry about it being associated with statutory services. However, in the gateway centres that are linked with our family hubs, they can still tap into local community support that the gateway services would also link in with the family hubs if they identify a family that needs that level of support as well. There's also a Digital Everyone service in Salford, so that families that might be experiencing digital poverty, because we know that that is going to only grow and grow in the current climate, they can access things like SIMs. They can come into the centres. There's someone available through that team that can help to coach them, teach them, so that they can also look at our different web pages, access advice and guidance through all of that. Next page, please. So this next slide, it just is expanding really a little bit on how our roles came to be about, mine, Ella's and Katrina's. We came from the Recovery and Build Back Better funding, and it was identified that although Salford have a great offer, we could strengthen those links with the VCSE community by joining up with them more. And that's now where we're looking at all of the last few months. We've been scoping and mapping out the community, getting out into the community, talking to local services, talking to partners, talking to professionals, talking to families, parents, trying to understand the needs of the local community so that we can pull that together for our theory of change, and we can start to really home in on those gaps that are already being identified by the families and the professionals that we speak to. We've also developed an online platform that allows for families that might not reach that level of safeguarding that enables them to have a referral into early help, but there is a weekly meeting where services meet and discuss those referrals into our Assure platform so that support can still be put into place. We're also looking at developing a training offer across the city where we are training everyone in our family partnership model. Anyone that works in the Salford Family Partnership would have access to the training in the family partnership model. So we all work to that same shared vision and model of work. We're also developing our parent carer panels in cohesion with Ella and Katrina so that we can capture the views of those parents and families so that it really is that co-partnership with the development of the Family Hub offer. I'll hand over to Ella and Katrina who can talk about their role more now.
Thanks, Claire. So yeah, I'm Ella. I'm the volunteering worker for the Family Hubs, and I just thought it'd be useful or interesting to go through a little bit about my role and how I aim to engage with a wide range of volunteers through that role. So This is just part of my role description. So develop positive working relationships with Salford City Early Help Services and work with Salford City Council's Early Help Services and BCSE organisations to identify and develop other volunteering roles to support the family partnership work. So I'm sure you all know just as well as anyone that the Early Help team is pretty much at their max capacity. They can't do much more than they're already doing, and volunteers are a great way to increase that capacity to support the early help team. They're not there to replace paid staff. That's really important to bear in mind, but they are there to enhance what the team can offer, and they offer unique support. It's different to what paid staff can offer. I'm also looking to get volunteers for VCSE organisations into the hubs. Again, that might be looking at different services that the early help team offer, but it hopefully really brings together a real kind of community focus and ownership of the hubs. Another part of my role is to recruit, train and support volunteers to act as peers to cascade parenting training and lead peer support groups. So this is really looking at that different type of support that volunteers can offer, that those peer support roles that are unique. They put the person with lived experience as the expert and at the heart of what we're looking at in the hubs. Part of the peer support services that we're offering is one of the national accredited EPEC role, also looking at breastfeeding support and dad support, so people can talk to other individuals in their community who may have been through a similar experience and get support that way. I'm also looking to recruit volunteers to support family hubs and working with Salford CVS Volunteer Centre colleagues. So like Claire said, me and Katrina are employed by Salford CVS, so that's Salford Community Voluntary Services, and we work in partnership with hubs. And that working with CVS has been extremely useful. They've got a dedicated volunteering comms team. They've got a volunteering portal where they can advertise all the volunteering opportunities out there. They offer one-to-one appointments with volunteers or people looking to volunteer and support for volunteers and voluntary organisations looking at best practice. So they're really kind of passing around, they're really giving out a lot of information to the VCSE community. And they're also really useful for any outreach that we're doing. So recently I did some outreach to the Lowry Theatre, which some of you may have heard of, in an ESOL event, and I was able to talk to volunteers there who maybe wouldn't have found us another way. Finally, I also look at motivating, valuing and supporting volunteers on an ongoing basis, and I can talk about that on the next slide if you're right to go into that. Thanks. So this is just, I thought I'd put together a kind of look at different points in the volunteer journey where I look to engage with volunteers. So firstly, there's recruitment. Again, like I said, CVS is a great resource for volunteer recruitment. They have a volunteer portal, so we can advertise all volunteering opportunities there. We also have offline adverts as well, and I'm really working to get kind of advertising boards up in the hubs and in different community outreach events and places, so people from a whole different variety of backgrounds can see what's on offer to volunteer in the hubs. And like I previously mentioned, there's a lot of outreach that I can do with CVS. Training, I'm also looking to kind of facilitate training, lots of different types of training opportunities to engage with different types of volunteers and different types of learners within that. So whether you learn from watching, from doing, from reading, I want to create a training opportunity there that you can engage with, or that volunteers can engage with. Training can be helpful for volunteers potentially looking for employment. So hopefully the training that I'm offering will bring in volunteers who maybe are looking for employment, as well as volunteers who are looking to volunteer for different motivations. For different motivations. I also look to monitor and evaluate the volunteers that we work with. So once volunteers are on board, and it's important to keep them engaged. One way I do this is looking at volunteer hours. So that's partly good for the hub, so we can see who's in there, but it's also good for volunteers. If they're looking for information for their CV, they can kind of look back and say, oh, I did 5 hours volunteering last week or last month, and this is what I did. We also offer volunteer expenses, so we try and make the opportunities as accessible as possible, so there aren't barriers to people volunteering. Food and travel expenses are the most common ones of those. I offer support to volunteers and a wide variety of support, so I'm available by phone, email and face-to-face. I'm going to offer drop-ins at the different hubs so people can kind of come and see me, a bit like office hours. And I also am going to be offering more structured support every 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the volunteer's needs. So I can have that conversation with the volunteer, say, do you want to meet more regularly or less regularly, and work with them for that. And finally, celebration events, I think, are a really good way of keeping volunteers engaged. Celebrate what a volunteer has done, and it's also a great social opportunity for one type of volunteer to meet another volunteer. And within all of this, the wide range of volunteering opportunities that we're creating within the hubs are hopefully also a great way to keep people engaged, because they can go try different opportunities, see what fits. Next slide, please. So now I can pass on to Katrina.
Thank you, Ella. Okay, so hi, I'm Katrina, and I'm the Voluntary Community and Social Enterprise Engagement Worker. And again, I'll go over my role a little bit. So one of the key things that I'm doing at the moment is scoping the children and young people's VCSE sector. And that just means finding out what's available in Salford, what organisations are out there that are working with children, young people and families. I'm creating and maintaining relationships with those organisations, and within that supporting the youth service and working with the youth partnership and neighbourhood development officers within the council as well. Monitoring and evaluating the process and reporting on any participation and engagement of VCSEs and what level of engagement that is. And you know, a key point is that I'm working in partnership with the early help practitioners to make sure that they're aware of what VCSE organisations are out there so they can refer families in, and also getting that feedback from early help practitioners so we know what families need. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the process of scoping and partnerships. So partnerships are key to our success, and that's why my role exists. So first of all, I found that understanding the Family Hub aims on a macro level, so what the aims are nationally, and then bringing those down to local needs, so tailoring those. So we've been doing lots of research, working with colleagues at Salford CVS to identify those Salford-based children, young people and families groups, and then collecting those details and meeting with them and just getting the ideas of what their experience is of working with the families in their local area. And you find, I've been finding across Salford that each area is different and each area needs a tailored approach. And then we've been gauging kind of stakeholder engagement, as I mentioned, and also identifying what our key stakeholders will be, so that we can, you know, who wants to partner, who's indifferent, who's neutral, who supports the Family Hub model and understands it, and who we kind of need to convince a little bit more, and how we get them on board to deliver things either within the Family Hub buildings we have already, or to become partners with the Family Hub model more broadly. And in terms of building that relationship, it's just a 5-step process at the moment, and it's going to lead into our theory of change. And I'll talk a little bit about our needs assessment in the next slide. But firstly, we've just been focusing on that stakeholder engagement because participant-led design is key, as we've seen throughout all of the presentations today, and identifying those key stakeholders as well. So, and what I mean by that is everybody's a key stakeholder, families are, but what I mean by key stakeholders in this version is those partners, those VCSE organisations that are already successfully working with children, young people and families, that are already delivering effective engagement, that are really creating change, that can come, whose priorities align with the Family Hub model and would like to partner with us, and that we can kind of offer something to in terms of support, in terms of access to training and volunteers. So those would be our key stakeholders in terms of partnership and delivering those aims for families. And when we meet with them, we can meet those up with those Family Hub needs, and then we partner with them, and we're currently developing what that partnership will look like. So, you know, what is it that we can offer them and what is it that they can offer families? Next slide, please. So one of the things that's kind of an example of this is the Lowry Theatre in Salford. We've partnered with them, so we've developed together a project that will last 6 months, and it will tour around the city, and it's the Wishing Tree project. And what it will do is it will go around all of the family hubs and also some VCSE centres, organisations, and it will be available for families, and sometimes there'll be an artist that will be available as well, offering activities to young people and children. And it's just to gather families' needs, so what it is that they wish that they could access for their family, what they could improve for their family, and also what they can share with other families as well, because we really value that experience. So families are experts by experience, people have things to contribute, and we value the skills that they have. So we also want to capture that. What can we do to help families be able to contribute? So that might be by giving breastfeeding advice because they themselves feel that they were really successful with that. They might want to just improve the littering where they live so that the space is safer for their children to play, whatever it might be. But yep, that's something that we're doing that's really exciting, and we'll start in October as well. So we can gather those needs and that feedback, and we can bring that together and share that knowledge as well with organisations and partners. Next slide, please. So in terms of accessibility, we are trying to reach those seldom heard communities, and that's something that's really, really important for us, because many people who access family hubs aren't always the people that need family hubs the most. So we're building partnerships with liaisons. We find that if we know someone in a VCSE organisation who's running that organisation, who's already working with families in an area, where those families have a relationship with them, they're more likely to access family hub services, work with early help, other organisations like that, because they've had that relationship and they've gone through that liaison, that middle person. And we're also implementing diverse engagement strategies to make sure that we're reaching people. So we do a lot of outreach, as Ella mentioned, doing a lot of face-to-face. We can do workshops, events. At the end of our Wishing Tree project, we're going to hold an exhibit in partnership with the Lowry at the Lowry space, and we're going to invite families to come and join us there and try and make that as accessible as possible. We're also focusing on the needs of the VCSEs as well, because these organisations are providing fantastic support for families, young people, children, and often they're in need of training. It might be that they need guidance to funding, whatever it might be. We also want to develop ways of supporting them. We're also constantly identifying and overcoming barriers, and a key part of that for us is our reflexive approach. So we're always looking at what are we doing, we're meeting to review it and develop better ways of working, so we're implementing that best practice. We have a partnership, so community connectors were mentioned earlier, and we have community connectors here in Salford as well, and we've got a partnership with Wellbeing Matters who manage them, and at the moment we're currently recruiting. Interviews have been held today actually for children, young people and families focused connector, so that means we're going to be working very closely with them so that we've got families have got that information about what activities exist within Salford throughout all different types of organisations. I've mentioned our outreach approach, and most of all what I want to just leave you with is that our approach is always participant led, and we really want to try our best to implement better listening strategies, and that's why that diverse approach is important, and our creative project is important. We just want to ensure that families' needs are heard and met, and that we're developing family hubs within their design and what it is that they want from them and need from them. I'll just pass you back to Claire. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina and Ella. So basically, yeah, that's where we're currently up to in Salford with the great work that they're both doing, and it's been a really collaborative approach, which has been fantastic, because we know that sometimes it's been about rebuilding those trusted relationships with the VCSE community as well. So that's been a large part of what the work that Katrina and Ella have been doing alongside myself. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions, I'll put my email in the chat. Feel free to get in touch. We'd love to talk to you. And we've also got Salford Family Partnerships Facebook page and Instagram page as well.
Thank you so much, Ella, Katrina and Claire. That was really interesting and really highlights the importance of volunteers and reaching out to services that are already out there, not having to think we have to do everything ourselves and making the most of community assets. So really it's open to the floor now. If there's any specific questions that you'd like to address to any of the speakers, or any thoughts that you've had about your own services in relation to navigating services, just put your hand up or put your name in the chat and I'll ask you to share your question. One of the questions that has been shared with us is around the funding for these areas of work, really. How do we fund our community connectors or our navigator roles? And I wondered if Vicky and Claire, you'd be able to share something around that.
So in Blackpool, kind of as I mentioned kind of at the beginning, we were lucky to be funded through Better Start National Lottery Community Fund, which was a 10-year offer of £45 million, which we know is a dramatic amount of money. However, the community connector element of the delivery is not significant in terms of our budget spending. So we've only got 2.5 years left of that funding now. So we're already looking at kind of sustainability and legacy that would allow that community connector role to continue. And the costings of that would certainly fit within kind of local authority budgets around the Best Start for Life, for example. We do have similar roles across the town, and we make sure that we don't offer any duplication there. So lots of football clubs have community trusts that draw down quite a significant amount of money and funding. Blackpool is one of those. So in Blackpool, we also have community navigators that are employed by Blackpool Football Club Community Trust. So there's lots of different avenues and funding streams, I guess, where these roles can work together to support the same aim of parents, communities, people accessing those community spaces. It doesn't necessarily have to be local authority funding, I guess.
Thank you, Vicky. Catherine or Claire, I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that.
Yes, so in Westminster, the posts were initially funded through earned autonomy from the Supporting Families programme. And again, sustainability is very much on our minds, and it can be hard to know going forward sort of what length of funding is going to be available through government programmes such as that. But it is definitely seen as a priority role for us to keep and build on within early help.
Thank you. We've just had a couple more questions in the chat, and one of them is about evaluating and really understanding, and I suppose that's kind of linked really, isn't it, to sustainability, about how do we measure the impact of these roles? How can we protect them? And when we anecdotally we might know that they're doing good work, but how do we put that in a piece of paper that you can then make a business case with? And I just wondered what tools or processes you've got in place to support that.
I think it's something it's very much been on our minds. We have sort of basic tools such as outcome stars, which can sort of demonstrate which areas you're making most impact in with families. But I think it's key really to also link it to other data. So if you know there's been national research that shows that a particular outcome is linked to improved life chances or improved speech and language abilities at starting school or something like that, you don't have to do all of that research yourself locally, but you can show we have done this and we know from research that this will make a difference to those children. You can never, there are so many variables for any individual family or cohort of families, but it seems that has to be the way forward. And also pooling all the impacts that are, because we have integrated leadership from our family hubs. So all of those voluntary sector and health bodies that make up that integration, they're all having to do evaluations all the time for funders, for commissioners. So you don't want to reinvent the wheel and send people a whole load of other data that they've got to compile. You need to bring together what's already being done and look at it together to show what does this show us. Because the information is there, but it can be a really tricky for people too close to it to actually have the time and the headspace and the tools to be able to analyse the data.
Thank you, Catherine.
I can share one of the tools that we've used in Blackpool. So we've created, and people can Google this. So I have just got it up on Google so I get the right name. It was written into a paper. So it's a community engaged research approach to develop and pilot a photo grid method to gain insights into early childhood development. So you can just Google photo grid Better Start research and it will come up, and I can share the link with Anna Freud later for people to look at that. But essentially it used photos of elements of early childhood development and asked members of our community to put them into a pyramid or a hierarchy. We've been doing that kind of every 2 years to measure the difference in where community members put elements of family life. So, for example, one of the cards is a photograph of dads or male carers, one of them is breastfeeding, one of them is the community connectors, one of them would be family hubs or community spaces. And parents are given the opportunity to fill out this grid in community spaces such as family hubs. It takes about 20 minutes. Researchers then write down the commentary of why they might have placed those cards in different areas. And then the findings of that are written up, and what we've done is kind of measured that over time to see how our interventions might be at the forefront of parents' minds. So, for example, we did a lot of work on babies' brains and brain development in the early years, and that came after an initial photo card that looked at brain development, and the commentary that came along that was more about having fish oils in pregnancy, but the narrative that we were talking about was around reciprocity and that parent and child infant relationship. So we knew that a piece of work needed to be done around that, and the second time it was consulted on and evaluated, we'd seen a change in commentary from parents, so kind of suggesting that training, community level training, has started to kind of take effect.
That sounds really interesting, and you could imagine that working really well with young people as well, having something that was visual and tactile.
Absolutely, same approach work can be applied across lots of different areas.
Brilliant, thank you. Donna, I think you've got your hand up. Donna Lonsdale O'Brien.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, it's just a comment really, because I've been working on the Village to Raise a Child project, and so it was just about feedback and sort of building a case, and we just asked for feedback from the parents and young people that we were working with, and that worked really well. You know, it was very short, very simple, but for future projects, etc., it would help to build a really animated sort of case for any future work. So sometimes you ask and you shall receive.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Donna. I think one final question that's come up to the chat, and then we need to head off to the next part of the afternoon, is do you have a particular base for your community connectors, or is that something that's more kind of agile for the navigator roles? How does that work to make sure that people are accessible, I guess?
So our family navigators are based in our family hubs, and that's sort of the front face of our early help service, really. So people get to know that it's somewhere that they can come in. But we also get inquiries by phone, by email, or by somebody going to another professional in another organisation. But yeah, the base is quite important for people also to have co-location with other professionals and space to reflect and discuss together.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think we've come to the end of this session. Thank you so much to our speakers. Really fascinating and insightful thoughts of where we've got to so far. We're now going to have a short break and then we're back to the final sessions of the day. So thank you so much, Catherine, Claire, Vicky, Katrina, Renella, and hope to see you in the final sessions. Take care.